Okay, let's get ready. Are we ready? Okay, not completely ready. Almost ready. Okay. Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about grease fires and what to do about them. My name is Ali Durmus, and let's begin. Abstract. In this experiment, I will test multiple household materials and methods that can put out a fire. Since we know that water is a massive no-no during grease fires, let's see our other options. We will be starting by grease fire. We will be starting by creating a grease fire on a pan. Only this time in a safe environment. I will test putting out the fire on the pan by using baking soda, salt, milk, trying to close the lid, and finally I will try the thing recommended for this situation, which is a fire extinguisher or a fire spray. I will clean the area and give my educated opinion about which option is best for a grease fire scenario. As you can see, fire extinguishers is on the logo and is what's recommended. Next, introduction. In this experiment, we will be experimenting with what kind of household material and way is best for putting out grease fires. Grease fires have been the leading cause of house fires in the United States for the longest time. The grease is very quick and effective at engulfing the house within a short period of time. After 1 minute, the fire will spread to your kitchen cabinets, and in 10 minutes, your whole kitchen will be fully engulfed, which is a really short period of time. And I took it upon myself to find the perfect solution and educate the people around me about this catastrophic disaster. The thing that makes grease fires so dangerous is that you can't put it out the way you put out typical fires. Hence, many people don't know how to react, therefore, being ineffective and potentially making the situation even worse. So if there's a fire, you can not put water on it and don't fan at the flames. The number one cause of fires in the home is by cooking. Next, hypothesis. For the materials, I will be testing out which are baking soda, salt, milk, fire extinguisher, and other materials. I feel like the baking soda and salt will do a decently good job putting out the fire. Still, it won't be too useful and quick to handle since you have to have a decent amount and be close to the fire. As for the milk, I feel like it won't be beneficial, not just that it's not sufficient. Um, s- it's also because most kitchens have a maximum of 1 liter of available milk to use. The rest of the milk will be in a sealed bag because milk is usually not available. I don't recommend milk. The fire extinguisher or the fire spray will be the best option since it's from a distance, effective and easy to use. The only problem with a fire extinguisher is that most kitchens don't have one and it may have expired a while ago, leaving you with no backup plan. Lastly, putting the lid on it will most likely be useful, but this is only when the fire is small and hasn't spread to anywhere else yet. Next, problem. The problem that made me want to do a science fair about grease fires was not because because not many people came across how to handle them during their life. So when a grease fire uh, actually happens, hopefully it doesn't, therefore their first instinct is to throw water at it. As you can see in the images shown, the image on the left is before the fire when the before throwing water at it, the fire before, and the image on the right is what happens after you throw water on it. As you can see, the fire has multiplied by a huge amount and has spread to the ceiling as well. I saw just how bad water can turn the fire, causing more harm to property and burning the person potentially. Therefore, I made a goal to find the best household solution to put them out without the need for external help. Next, materials. A stove or oven. You can also see the materials on the right. A lighter, fuel or gas for the stove, pan with lid, baking soda, salt, milk, a fire extinguisher, or a fire spray. All the materials are shown there and you can see them. Next, we have the procedure. First of all, make sure that the environment is safe. This is very important since, as we know, grease fires escalate very quickly. Second, have adult supervision. This is important, especially if you're a younger person, because you might not know what to do. Third, have a fire extinguisher or fire spray nearby that is effective for a grease fire. It shouldn't be a liquid fire extinguisher. Next, set your portable stove and fuel on a flat surface. Set up a camera so you can record and collect the results. Light the stove and put a pan with the oil on top. Wait for the oil to sizzle and light it on fire. After, you may begin experimenting with a different method and materials. Next, um, the next procedures are like the materials you can use, for example, are you might put some baking soda right on top of the fire and see how it plays out, or after that you can try salt and see how that plays. Another experiment after that is using milk, which is usually within reach in any kitchen. Therefore milk would be useful if it passes the test. After that, continuously try different ways. For example, you can put the lid on the next time after you try every other way, and you can now try putting out the fire with fire extinguisher and compare how much better it is. After the experiment is done, put out the fire if there is any and clean it up. Check the footage you have and record your data. Next, the results. The results were pretty surprising, and I have learned a lot during this experiment. First of all, I found it more challenging to have the grease burn than I expected. Most vegetable oils have a smoking point of around 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So at one point, I used two campstone stove fires to heat the oil. But it does make sense since grease fires happen when people let food cook unattended. I couldn't get the grease to cook like, or to burn very fast, so I had to use two camp stoves, which is weaker than a normal oven, but it eventually worked. Next, results part 2, the lid. After I had a fire, I first tried putting the lid back on, and I was pleased about the results. First, I put on the stove fire and put the lid as fast as possible without allowing the fire to burn me. On the right, you can all see on the pictures, before the fire, there was some before putting on the lid, there was some fire, and after the lid, the fire had completely disappeared, and you could only see the smoke left. The lid method works great. The only problem is that this method only works if the fire hasn't spread away from the pan. I recommend 9 out of 10 if the fire is still in the pan because the fire was put out very fast. If the fire escaped the pot, then 3 out of 10 because you can't really stop something that already spread. Results part 3, baking soda. Next, I tried baking soda to see how effective that would be. And this time the results weren't as surprising and kind of what expected. On the right, you can see on the pictures, before putting the baking soda, we had some fire burning, and then after we put the baking soda, the fire had completely disappeared, but we had to use a lot of baking soda. Baking soda was able to eliminate the fire, but it took plenty of baking soda to put it out. While we don't recommend using baking soda to a big fire, I give the baking soda 6.5 out of 10. It's an excellent last option. Next, result part 4, the salt. Next we have salt. Salt wasn't that great. It didn't make the fire worse at all, but it didn't do anything at all. After a ton of salt, the fire stopped, but baking soda is a better choice. 3.8 out of 10. Before salt, after salt. After lots and lots of salt, the fire calmed but didn't die. This took a while to even reduce the fire. The reason it reduced was because I was throwing it on top of the fire. It didn't really have any good effect, but it didn't make the fire any worse. So 3.8 out of 10. Next, we have milk. Next up, I tested out milk. Milk was similar to the effect that water gives. Even though I poured it slowly, fire splashed around and grew significantly in size at first. It started calming after that, since there was no place for the fire to hold on to, since it was safe. On the picture, you can see before the milk there was some fire, but after the milk, it like multiplied by at least five, and if it was a normal kitchen it would have probably catched on to the counter and some cabinets. Milk was terrible, just like water, negative 70,000 out of 10. Next, results part 6, fire extinguisher. Finally, we had the fire extinguisher tested out. This was my first time using it. It was a pleasant experience. The fire extinguisher proved itself worthy and it could handle a real fire as well. On the right, you can see before fire extinguisher, we had a pretty big fire, and after the fire extinguisher, it completely put it out. I will rate the fire extinguisher a definite 10 out of 10. Only problem is you have to have one available and make sure it's not expired. Next, conclusion part 1. In conclusion, this experiment has been a success. I have learned everything and don'ts and do's during a grease fire. Like first, you should always turn off the stove and you should never carry the pan around your house since you may drop some oil and spread the fire even more. I have concluded that you should never use milk to put out your grease fires. It has the exact terrible effects as water and is very dangerous. The baking soda was somewhat decent, but not the most effective. Salt didn't do anything, and the lid was a perfect solution, but only if the fire was inside the pan. Conclusion part 2, the fire spray. We learned today that everyone should store at least a fire spray in their kitchen for emergency use. The one I got is the fire alert spray found anywhere like Walmart and Home Depot. It is shown on the right. This fire spray was specifically made for kitchens and grease fires. I got it for a little over $20 and it can save a lot more money potentially. I recommend it to everyone. Next, these are the research links that I had. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you learned something today.